It's Lorena with That's Normal. I'm here with Oliver Dench, who plays Xander in the CW show Pandora. I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about your character. If you could just tell us, what's been your favorite part so far, like playing him.
I've got these wonderful scenes where I'm in a bar sarcastically drinking, which just works for me. Other characters come and they talk to me at the bar, and there's this little underlying fizziness, this spiciness about you really shouldn't be drinking so much in the bar, Xander, and me going like, well, piss off, or whatever. And those are fun scenes to shoot with my friends. They're fun scenes when Ben comes in to talk to me, when Priscilla comes in to talk to me, when Jax and Raylan come in to talk to me. They're pleasant for me to mess around with. And then beyond those, in terms of character-driven stuff, we've got some cool fight scenes. And they're fun. Stressful, but really fun.
How do you train for the fight scenes?
Sometimes super last minute. Sometimes there'll be a fight director saying at the last minute, okay, we've got 10 minutes, so come off, we're going to rehearse as quickly as we can. And they'll be like, do this, that. We did one at the end where we had got to the point, the final point of the fight that we had rehearsed. They didn't call cut, the fight director just said, carry on, just hit him. And I was going, so sometimes not very much at all. But in terms of fight scenes, when you get a chance to talk to Ben, talk to him about it, because he's a good fighter and he does backflips and stuff. Wow. So they wrote it into his character to do all these crazy flips and stuff. Try and get him to do you one here. Tell him I told you to.
I will attempt the backflip action request.
Ideal.
Are you, it's set very much in the future. Are you a big fan of sci-fi?
I used to read a lot of sci-fi. I used to read some Arthur C. Clarke and some Heinlein and those kind of sci-fi novels. And then when I was young, I was into Star Wars. I was like the perfect age when Phantom Menace came out, that I watched it and I didn't even realise when I was a child that it wasn't very good. I didn't even realise that the whole like Jar Jar Binks is a bit racist and the character development. I didn't care. I was like an 8-year-old boy. I was just like having a great time. And as I got older, I've grown more of an appreciation for some, more interesting sci-fi stuff. I also got more into the second series of Star Trek, the Next Generation stuff, because it's got Patrick Stewart in it, who's like one of the better Shakespearean actors that England's ever produced. So I was into that. So yeah, I actually do quite like sci-fi.
Okay.
I'm into it.
That's awesome. What was it like? What was the moment when you got the role? Like, tell us about like when you found out you got the role.
It was a funny moment. Okay. It was, it's not as in a funny story, just a funny feeling for me. It was the season we really jumped into it immediately. There was not a massive amount of prep. I had done one audition. So when I got the call offering me the job, I didn't know what was happening. And it was only when, we fed back through my agent that I'd like to read some scripts, I'd like to find out what's going on, that we got to read the scripts and I spoke to Mark, and Mark talked about making a show that was more optimistic than lots of other sci-fi can be. I think there's a real trend of dystopian stuff out there, which I love. I think dystopian is a great tool to mess with what a society should expect, all that kind of artistic stuff. But it's not the only tool that we have, and something more optimistic and aspirational can be exciting too. So I just thought that would be cool. Something that was referential of Star Trek, of Battlestar, of Starfleet Academy, that kind of stuff was something I'd be interested to play with. So I thought from that point on I was like, sold, I'll do that. That sounds fun. Also he said I'd be like, what's the film he said? It's a Hitchcock film called Notorious, and Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman, and he said that was basically my character description, so I thought, fine, Cary Grant. Yeah. I'll try. I'll try and do that, and that sounds fun.
Yeah, another Englishman, so yeah,
great.
You got to do it. All right, so one final question for you.
Yep.
Here at That's Normal, we have a saying, we're obsessed too. And so I wanted to ask you, beyond the sci-fi you've told us about already, what are you just obsessed with? Like, what do you really geek out over?
Massive Shakespeare fan. I adore Shakespeare.
Okay, you need to do some quote now. A little.
Loads of quotes.
Just give us something.
I have of late, and wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth, forgone all custom of exercise, and indeed it goes so heavily with me that this goodly sphere, look you, the earth, seems to me a sterile promontory. I'm saying that, and I'm realizing that it's one of the most depressing Shakespeare quotes, but it's fun, and it's Hamlet, like, it's one of his good soliloquies because it's not in iambic pentameter. It's this little bit of, normally he writes in this verse and Hamlet's this incredibly poetic character, which is great and wonderful and has a substance, but then there's that that speech, he comes really directly to the audience, and he speaks in a prose that they would more reasonably connect with. So it's like a jump from the play into this sudden moment of directness, of breaking the fourth wall in a more direct way than the soliloquy ever did, which I think is really great. I just love it. When I first wanted to be an actor, that's all I wanted to do. Someone cast me. Someone cast me in a Shakespeare film. I'll do it for no money.
Maybe don't offer that, but
For some money.
yeah, there you go.
Great.
All right. Well, so any other passion of Shakespeare you want to share with us?
All of it. Mate, read it. Don't read it, see it. And if you love it, then start reading it, because it is the best stuff ever. But it's this, the history of Shakespeare, the history of theatre in England at that time, it's so exciting and so interesting. This whole thing with women not being allowed to play their parts, and then by the end of Shakespeare's life, they were kind of allowed to play their parts. And this, what he writes for his time, he's not perfect. He exhibits racism and sexism and so on in his work. It was written in the 1600s, of course. But for his time, he's remarkable. Like his female characters in As You Like It and Twelfth Night, and they have this remarkable impetus and option of doing things, which is just so exciting, so interesting, especially because like Johnson and Marlowe and other playwrights at the time didn't write for women at all. It was like purely male-driven stuff. He has his issues. They do reach the end of the play, and they're all about marriage, and they're all, they don't have their own personalities as much as they could have, but it's so exciting. And it's not meant to be read. It was never meant to be read. It's meant to be heard and listened. So go and see some Shakespeare plays, and if you love it and you're into it, then you can read it and start to appreciate how it would sound and all that kind of stuff. But mate, get into it, because it's so cool. I think it's so cool. So yeah.
You're obsessed too. So
I'm obsessed.
Yeah. All right.
obsessed too.
Well, thanks so much, Oliver.
No, thanks
It's been
very
great.
much. Thanks for talking to me.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.